Vasistha continued, O Ram, whatever might have been the origin of the mind, and whatever it might be, one should constantly direct it towards liberation through self-effort. The pure mind is free from latent tendencies, and therefore it attains self-knowledge. I've mentioned before about liberation not as a final state, but as a practice. I think a lot of our ideas of liberation, especially in the West, are tied up with the figure of the Buddha, the figure of the meditating Buddha. And it's a very, very powerful image. This calm, serene figure, supposedly sitting in enlightenment, in contrast to the rest of us chasing after our anxieties and desires. But the fact is, if you read the very early Buddhist scriptures, you get a very human picture of the Buddha. He suffered fatigue, he got cramp, he got back pain, because he had Ananda, who was his personal attendant, and Ananda used to massage him. And as he got older, he did get tired, and even before he died, he had quite an excruciating time. I think one theory is that he had food poisoning, but he experienced diarrhea. But well before that, he also got angry. He was the focus of some assassination attempts, especially by his cousin Devadatta. So Devadatta obviously wasn't transformed by the transcendental compassion of the Buddha. Devadatta wanted to get the Buddha out of the way. And the Buddha didn't take kindly to this at all. He wasn't full of loving forgiveness. He was furious with Devadatta. And yeah, we've got this, he was a human being, so after he reached his enlightenment, sitting under the tree, he came back and he got on with teaching and organising the Sangha, organising the community of monks. And another thing about the Buddha relating to his teaching, it's often expressed in terms of the Eightfold Path. This was a description not only of the behaviour of the Buddhist, but of the practices of the Buddhist. And it's normally expressed as 8 items. They're not really consecutive stages. There really are just different aspects of the overall practice. And there's 2 aspects which are usually missed out. Sometimes it's described as a Tenfold Path. And the last 2 aspects are right insight and right liberation. Which suggests to me that liberation is a practice, not something that you reach once and for all. I mean, it is something which is reached once and for all. I mean, it's a bit like a mountain peak. It can be reached, but then you don't live all the time on that mountain peak. You need to keep going back to it. You keep going back to it. And I mean, that analogy is not very good, because it takes quite an effort to get to the mountain peak, and to actually achieve the liberated insight, it can happen to anybody, anywhere, at any time. It doesn't require any effort. It's only once you've stumbled upon that's when the effort happens. that's when the effort is required. So in terms of my analogy, which doesn't really work very well, it's like you just suddenly found yourself on the mountain peak and you think, wow, what a view, an amazing view. And some people might start then talking about this mountain peak and telling people about it, and they start relating to a memory of it, but they don't actually ever go back up to it. And this is where the self-effort comes in. It's quite a brutal self-effort, because it's so easy to deceive oneself. And this understanding is not contradicted by this passage here in the Yoga Vasistha. It says one should constantly direct the mind towards liberation. So it's not as if we're on the way to liberation and it's liberation somewhere in the distance. No, liberation is right here now, and we have to keep directing our mind to it. Not in the sense of hoping to reach it eventually, but actually being there, or being here. At that point, the mind is free from its latent tendencies. But the latent tendencies will bring the mind back to its normal behaviour. So then we make the self-effort to direct the mind, direct the attention once more back to itself, and in effect once more back beyond the latent tendencies. So this is spiritual practice.